Welcome to Gold Rush Stories, your best YouTube channel for gold stories. The jungle was not a place for the faint-hearted. The air was thick with the scent of wet earth and ancient trees, alive with a hum of unseen insects. Deep inside the heart of South America, far from the reach of roads or radio signals, a lone prospector named Samuel Graves trudged through the mud, a pickaxe on his shoulder and determination in his eyes. Samuel had been in the wilderness for months, living on dried meat, rainwater, and the hope that he'd strike gold before his body gave out. He was not young anymore, 43, lean and weathered, with a beard that had grown wild and eyes that carried the weight of too many empty promises. He'd chased rumors of gold veins hidden near the lost riverbeds for years. Each time, he told himself it would be his last try, but greed and faith are stubborn companions. The morning had started like any other, mist creeping low over the canopy, the sound of distant howler monkeys, the metallic rhythm of his shovel breaking the silence. But that day, something felt different. The birds were restless, the air unusually still. Even the jungle seemed to hold its breath. As Samuel dug near a cluster of boulders beside a narrow stream, his shovel hit something that wasn't rock. He crouched and brushed away the dirt, expecting to find a root or perhaps a half-buried tool from some forgotten explorer. Instead, he found cloth, torn fabric, then skin. For a moment, his heart froze. He dropped to his knees and scraped away the mud. The figure of a woman appeared, not dead but unconscious, her face pale beneath the grime, lips cracked, and hair tangled with leaves. Her clothes were torn, her wrists scraped raw. "Jesus," he muttered, checking for a pulse. There was faint but steady. She was alive. Samuel poured some water over her face, and she gasped weakly, her eyelids fluttering open. Her voice came out as a whisper, trembling and dry. "Help me." He didn't ask who she was. Not yet. In the jungle, questions came later. Survival came first. He carried her to his small camp by the river, a patch of ground surrounded by tarps, a fire pit, and the few belongings that hadn't rotted away. He laid her on a blanket and tried to get her to drink. She coughed, spitting up muddy water, before finally swallowing. As she regained some strength, her eyes darted around, terrified. "Where am I?" "You're safe," Samuel said softly. "You were out there, half buried in the mud. What happened to you?" She hesitated, looking like she didn't know whether to speak. Her lips trembled. I don't remember. There was an accident, or maybe something else. I was running. Running from what?" She looked into the trees, as if the shadows might answer. "I don't know." Samuel built up the fire, watching her carefully. Something about her story didn't add up. The jungle didn't just swallow people whole, not unless they were lost or running from something truly dangerous. As the night came down, the two sat in silence, the flames flickering between them. Samuel handed her a piece of dried meat, but she only stared at it. "You got a name?" he asked. She hesitated. "Clara." "Clara what?" She looked down, eyes glassy. "Just Clara." He nodded slowly. "All right, Clara. I'm Sam." The night sound of the jungle began to rise. Frogs croaking, cicadas buzzing, the occasional shriek of something unseen. But beneath all of that, Samuel thought he heard something else, a faint rhythm. It came and went like footsteps, moving in the darkness beyond the firelight. He stood and reached for his rifle. Clara's eyes widened. "What is it?" "Stay quiet," he whispered. He moved slowly to the edge of the camp, every sense alert. The jungle around them was a black ocean, impossible to read. Then nothing, just silence. After a minute, he returned to the fire, but the feeling didn't leave him. He'd been out here long enough to know when the forest was watching. By morning, Clara seemed stronger. She ate a little, though her hands still shook. Samuel noticed a faint outline of bruises on her arms, not the kind caused by falling, the kind caused by someone's grip. As they packed up to move toward the river trail, Clara suddenly froze. Her gaze locked on something in the mud near the camp. Samuel followed her eyes, and his stomach turned cold. There, half covered by leaves, were footprints. Not his, not hers. Fresh ones, and they led right up to where he had been sleeping. Someone had been there during the night, watching them. He looked at Clara. "Who's following you?" Her face went pale. "I told you, I don't know." But there was fear in her eyes, deep and real. They broke camp in silence, moving quickly through the brush. The sun beat down to the canopy and sweat soaked Samuel's shirt. He'd been planning to stay in this area for another week, but that was no longer an option. If someone else was out there, and that someone had an interest in this woman, it was time to leave. After hours of hiking, they reached the river. Samuel's small wooden raft waited there, tied to a tree. He loaded his gear while Clara stood on the bank, staring upriver. Then she whispered, "They'll find us." "Who?" She didn't answer. As they pushed off into the current, the sound of the water drowned everything else, except for a single cry echoing through the jungle, faint but unmistakable. A man's voice, calling her name. "Clara!" Samuel froze mid-paddle. Clara went rigid, gripping the edge of the raft so tightly her knuckles went white. "Who the hell is that?" Samuel demanded. Tears filled her eyes. "You don't understand. If he finds me, we'll both die." The word sent a chill through him. He didn't ask again. He just paddled faster. The river bent sharply, carrying them deeper into the green labyrinth. The further they went, the more oppressive the jungle seemed, as if it wanted to close around them. That night, they made camp on a sandbar. Samuel tried to sleep, but his mind wouldn't let him. The woman's story, the footprints, the voice, it didn't make sense. Just before dawn, he heard rustling again. He reached for his rifle and crawled out of the tent. The fog was thick over the river, white and silent, and through it a shape moved. A man, standing knee-deep in the water, watching the camp. Samuel aimed the rifle. "Who's there?" The man didn't move, didn't speak. Then, in a blink, he vanished into the mist. When Samuel turned back toward the tent, Clara was gone. Her footprints led straight toward the jungle. He shouted her name, heart hammering, pushing through vines and thorns until his lungs burned. He followed her tracks for what felt like hours, until the forest opened up into a clearing he'd never seen before. And there she was, standing in front of a massive stone structure, half swallowed by roots and moss, the ruins of something ancient. She turned as he approached, her face calm now, almost serene. "You shouldn't have followed me," she said quietly. "What the hell is going on, Clara?" She stepped aside, and Samuel saw something behind her, a large, circular opening carved into stone. Inside, glimmering faintly even in the dim light, was gold. Dozens of artifacts, coins, plates, and what looked like a crown, half buried in the dirt. Samuel's eyes widened. "My God!" Clara looked back at him, sadness in her voice. "It's not what you think." From the shadows of the ruins, movement stirred. Figures, 3, maybe 4, emerged slowly. Men armed with machetes and rifles. The gunfire echoed to the trees like thunder, rolling and sharp. Samuel dug behind a fallen log, his rifle clutched tight, heart pounding so hard he could taste blood. The air filled with smoke and the smell of gunpowder. Bullets snapped through leaves, hitting wood, dirt, stone. He shouted for Clara, but her voice was gone, swallowed by the chaos. When the shooting stopped, the jungle went quiet again, except for the ragged beat of his pulse. He risked a glance over the log. The men were gone. The clearing stood empty, the ruins still and silent as if nothing had happened. But Clara had vanished. He waited, crouched in the mud, for what felt like an hour. No footsteps, no movement, just a drip of rainwater from the canopy and the hum of insects returning. When he finally rose, his knees shaking, he walked to the stone entrance. Inside, the faint gleam of gold flickered in the shadows, but the deeper he looked, the more he saw something else, bones. Dozens of them, some still half-buried. Whatever this place was, it wasn't a treasure trove. It was a tomb. He turned back toward the forest, torn between running and finding Clara. But before he could decide, he heard something behind him. Samuel. He spun around. Clara stood there, hair tangled, face pale, eyes wide and distant. "Clara!" Jesus, where'd you go? Who were those men? They used to be part of the expedition, she said softly, before everything went wrong. He stared. Expedition? She nodded. 6 months ago, I was part of a research team from Manaus. We came looking for the ruins of a lost tribe that supposedly guarded a gold sanctuary. But when we found it, her voice trailed off. She looked down. Something happened, she whispered. They started fighting. People died. I ran. Samuel studied her face. He could tell she was holding something back. And those men, they're the ones who didn't die, she said quietly. At least not completely. A chill ran through him. What do you mean, not completely? She looked toward the jungle. You heard them. You saw them. Tell me, did they look alive to you? He hesitated. He hadn't seen clearly. Just shapes, shadows, eyes reflecting the firelight. But something about the way they moved, silent, fluid, hadn't felt human. Clara, he said slowly, you're saying they're... I don't know what they are, but they keep coming back. He didn't believe her. Not really, but the fear in her voice was real. He loaded his rifle again. We need to move. They left the ruins behind, following the river deeper north. Samuel had no idea where they were headed. All he knew was that staying meant dying. For 2 days they pushed through the jungle, mud up to their ankles, rain pouring in relentless sheets, mosquitoes biting through their clothes. Clara barely spoke, and when she did, it was in fragments about her team, about something they found near the ruins. A relic. The stone, she said one night, staring into the fire. It wasn't gold. It was darker, warm, even when the air was cold. Samuel frowned. What stone? She glanced at him. They thought it was part of the treasure, but it wasn't. It changed them. After they touched it, they started hearing things, voices in the dark. He scoffed. You're talking like it's cursed. She didn't answer. The fire popped. Somewhere in the distance, a branch cracked. Samuel froze. The noise came again, closer this time. He grabbed his rifle, eyes scanning the tree line. Someone's out there. Clara stood, trembling. They found us. Then came the voice, low, male, echoing between the trees. Clara? Samuel's blood ran cold. It was the same voice he'd heard at the river. He aimed into the darkness. Show yourself. No answer, only silence. Then a figure stepped forward. A man, tall and lean, his clothes soaked, his eyes burning with something that wasn't quite sanity. His skin was pale, gray almost, and his veins dark like ink beneath the surface. He smiled. Clara, he said again, you shouldn't have left. She stepped back, whispering, Diego, you know him? Samuel asked. She nodded. He was our guide. Diego took another step closer. We were so close, Clara. The gold, the secret. But you ran. You left us to rot. Stay back, Samuel warned. Diego turned his gaze toward him and smiled wider. And who are you, old man? Another fool chasing dreams of gold. Samuel didn't answer. Diego tilted his head. You think she's innocent? You think she doesn't know what she's done? Clara shouted, Stop! But Diego lunged forward, impossibly fast. Samuel fired. The bullet struck him square in the chest. Yet he didn't fall. He stumbled, looked down at the wound, and laughed. A wet, rattling sound that chilled the air. Samuel fired again, another hit. Still, Diego came closer. Then Clara grabbed Samuel's arm. Run! They turned and sprinted to the jungle, crashing through vines, tripping over roots, the sound of pursuit behind them. Footsteps, laughter, voices whispering a language neither of them understood. They didn't stop until they reached a narrow ravine where the river cut deep into the rock. The only way across was a fallen tree trunk. Clara went first, balancing carefully. Samuel followed, heart racing. Halfway across, the trunk shifted. Diego appeared on the opposite bank, smiling, eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Clara, he whispered, you can't run from what's yours. Clara turned, tears streaming down her face. I never wanted it. She stepped forward, but the trunk gave way. Samuel barely managed to grab her wrist as she slipped, her body dangling over the chasm. The current roared below, hungry and black. "Hold on," he shouted, straining. Her hand was slick with rain and mud. "Samuel," she gasped, "if he gets that stone, he'll kill everyone." "What stone?" She looked at him, her eyes desperate. "In my bag. Don't let him take it." Her grip slipped. "Clara!" She fell into the darkness below. Samuel stared after her, helpless, the sound of the river drowning everything. Then Diego's voice came again. "You should have let her go." Samuel looked up, fury rising. He fired again and again until the rifle clicked empty. When the smoke cleared, Diego was gone. The jungle was silent again. Samuel collapsed to his knees, breathing hard. He reached for Clara's bag, where it had fallen on the edge of the ravine. Inside, wrapped in cloth, was a small black stone, smooth, round, pulsing faintly with heat. He stared at it, confused, unsettled. He could feel a vibration through his fingers, almost like a heartbeat. "What the hell?" he whispered. Then, somewhere behind him, he heard movement, soft, deliberate. He turned, rifle raised. But there was nothing, only the sound of the river below, and the faint whisper of a woman's voice. "Samuel." It was Clara. He froze. "Clara?" he called out. "Where are you?" No answer. Then, again closer. "Samuel." He felt the hair rise on his neck. The voice was coming from the bag, from the stone itself. He dropped it instantly. It rolled across the ground, pulsing brighter now, like molten metal under the surface. For a long moment, he just stood there, breathing hard. Then he did the only thing that made sense. He wrapped it back up, shoved it into his pack, and started walking. He didn't know where he was going. He just knew he couldn't stay. As he pushed through the jungle, the whispers followed. Faint, distant, sometimes sounding like Clara, sometimes like something else entirely. And though he tried to ignore it, one thought wouldn't leave his mind. Whatever that stone was, it hadn't just changed the others. It was changing him too. It had been nearly 50 years since the disappearance of Sal Cristovo, and the jungle had taken everything back. The roots swallowed what was left of the roads, vines wrapped around the stones, and no one spoke the village's name anymore. But legends don't die easy, not where gold once ran under the dirt like blood. They called him Elias Turner, 34 years old, born in Montana, a drifter, a prospector, and a man who'd already lost more than most could bear. He'd come south chasing a rumor about a place where the ground shimmered when you dug deep enough. He wasn't after money anymore. He was after meaning. The Amazon greeted him the same way it greeted everyone, with silence, the kind that felt alive. He'd been walking for 6 days, machete cutting through the green walls, sweat running down his back. Every night, the jungle came alive with sound that made him feel small. Frogs that croaked like they were talking, birds that screamed like people, insects that sang until his thoughts blurred. On the 7th morning, he found something strange. It was a clearing, too round to be natural. The soil there was black, hard like stone. The trees around were dead, but not burned, more like drained. He knelt, brushed his hand against the surface. Cold, smooth, and then a hum. It came from beneath his palm, a vibration that traveled up his arm, slow and deliberate, like the ground itself had a heartbeat. He pulled his hand back, breathing hard. The sound stopped. That night, while he camped near the river, Elias heard something. Not animals, not thunder, a steady metallic rhythm, faint but impossible to ignore. Clink, clink, clink. It came from the direction of the clearing. He tried to tell himself it was nothing, maybe an echo, maybe his imagination. But the sound grew louder with each passing night. By the 4th night, he couldn't sleep. He packed his lantern, loaded his revolver, and walked back to the clearing. The hum greeted him again as soon as he stepped onto the black soil. He set down the lantern. The light barely touched the surface. It just slid across it like the ground didn't want to be seen. And then he saw it, a shape half buried near the center. Not rock, not wood, metal, a pickaxe. Its head fused into the ground like it had melted there. He knelt to touch it, But before his fingers reached it, he heard footsteps behind him. Slow, heavy. He turned. There, standing just beyond the ring of lantern light, was a man, broad shoulders, wide-brimmed hat, face hidden in the dark. Elias froze. "Hey, who's there?" No answer. The figure didn't move. Elias raised his lantern, and for a split second he caught the glint of eyes, gold eyes, reflecting the light like a predator's. Then the figure stepped back and vanished into the trees. The jungle swallowed the sound. Only the hum remained. The next morning, Elias found footprints. Not his. Bare wide, pressed deep into the earth. The stride was long, too long. Whoever left them wasn't walking. They were striding with purpose. He followed the prints until they disappeared into mud. That's when he found the chapel, or what was left of it, half buried, roof collapsed, vines crawling through broken walls. But the bell tower was still standing, crooked but proud. Inside, he found a single chest under the altar. It was eaten by termites but still intact enough to open. Inside lay an old piece of parchment. Symbols, spirals, lines that twisted in ways that hurt to look at. He felt dizzy. A note was scrawled at the bottom in faded ink. "The gold isn't in the ground. It's in us." Elias frowned. What the hell does that mean? He pocketed the paper and left before dark. But as he crossed the clearing again, something caught his eye. Movement beneath the black soil. It was subtle, like shadows shifting underwater. He crouched, squinting. The ground pulsed faintly. And then he heard it. A voice, distant and low. "Keep digging." He spun around. No one there. The lantern flickered. Again the whisper. "Keep digging." The voice wasn't coming from behind him. It was coming from below. The ground cracked. A thin line of golden light split the earth beneath his boots, spreading outward like veins. Elias stumbled back, terrified, but the light faded as quickly as it came. Silence again. He grabbed his things and ran until his lungs burned. He spent the next day trying to convince himself he'd imagined it. He drank, prayed, even tried to burn the parchment, but the flames wouldn't touch it. They just curved around it like it wasn't really there. By nightfall, he gave up. He sat by the river, staring at his reflection in the water. That's when he saw it, a shimmer behind his reflection, a golden outline, faint but unmistakable, standing right behind him. He turned, revolver drawn. Nothing. When he looked back at the water, the reflection was gone, except for one thing, his eyes. For a split second, they glowed gold. Days passed. Elias stopped keeping track of time. He began dreaming of voices in the soil, of men with pickaxes walking through molten earth. He dreamed of a woman with pale eyes calling his name, her hand reaching for him from a tunnel of light. Every morning, he woke up closer to the clearing. It was as if something was pulling him there. He fought it for a while, until the night the humming stopped. The silence was worse. It felt like the world had stopped breathing. So he gave in. He took his pickaxe, walked to the center of the clearing, and began to dig. The ground was hard at first, then soft, then warm. Steam rose with every strike. The deeper he dug, the louder his heartbeat sounded. Or maybe it wasn't his heartbeat at all. Something was answering him. And when his pick finally struck metal, a flash of gold burst through the hole, blinding and beautiful. He fell back, gasping. The light spread in thin tendrils, crawling up his arms, into his veins. It didn't burn. It sang. He tried to move, but the ground beneath him was breathing now, inhaling, exhaling. And from deep below, a voice rose through the soil, clear and calm. "Welcome back." The next morning, a research team upriver reported strange electrical readings near the old São Cristóvão Basin. When they arrived, they found a fresh crater, smoke rising from the soil, and at its center, a single pickaxe embedded in gold glass. No sign of Elias Turner. Only the hum remained. It had been nearly 50 years since the disappearance of São Cristóvão, and the jungle had taken everything back. The roots swallowed what was left of the roads. Vines wrapped around the stones, and no one spoke the village's name anymore. But legends don't die easy. Not where gold once ran under the dirt like blood. They called him Elias Turner, 34 years old, born in Montana, a drifter, a prospector, and a man who'd already lost more than most could bear. He'd come south chasing a rumor about a place where the ground shimmered when you dug deep enough. He wasn't after money anymore. He was after meaning. The Amazon greeted him the same way it greeted everyone, with silence, the kind that felt alive. He'd been walking for 6 days, machete cutting through the green walls, sweat running down his back. Every night, the jungle came alive with sound that made him feel small. Frogs that croaked like they were talking, birds that screamed like people, insects that sang until his thoughts blurred. On the 7th morning, he found something strange. It was a clearing, too round to be natural. The soil there was black, hard like stone. The trees around were dead, but not burned, more like drained. He knelt, brushed his hand against the surface. Cold, smooth, and then a hum. It came from beneath his palm, a vibration that traveled up his arm, slow and deliberate, like the ground itself had a heartbeat. He pulled his hand back, breathing hard. The sound stopped. That night, while he camped near the river, Elias heard something. Not animals, not thunder, a steady metallic rhythm, faint but impossible to ignore. Clink, clink, clink. It came from the direction of the clearing. He tried to tell himself it was nothing, maybe an echo, maybe his imagination. But the sound grew louder with each passing night. By the 4th night, he couldn't sleep. He packed his lantern, loaded his revolver, and walked back to the clearing. The hum greeted him again as soon as he stepped onto the black soil. He set down the lantern. The light barely touched the surface. It just slid across it like the ground didn't want to be seen. And then he saw it, a shape half buried near the center. Not rock, not wood, metal, a pickaxe. Its head fused into the ground like it had melted there. He knelt to touch it, but before his fingers reached it, he heard footsteps behind him. Slow, heavy. He turned. There, standing just beyond the ring of lantern light, was a man, broad shoulders, wide-brimmed hat, face hidden in the dark. Elias froze. "Hey, who's there?" No answer. The figure didn't move. Elias raised his lantern, and for a split second he caught the glint of eyes, gold eyes, reflecting the light like a predator's. Then the figure stepped back and vanished into the trees. The jungle swallowed the sound. Only the hum remained. The next morning, Elias found footprints. Not his. Bare wide, pressed deep into the earth. The stride was long, too long. Whoever left them wasn't walking. They were striding with purpose. He followed the prints until they disappeared into mud. That's when he found the chapel, or what was left of it, half buried, roof collapsed, vines crawling through broken walls. But the bell tower was still standing, crooked but proud. Inside, he found a single chest under the altar. It was eaten by termites but still intact enough to open. Inside lay an old piece of parchment. Symbols, spirals, lines that twisted in ways that hurt to look at. He felt dizzy. A note was scrawled at the bottom in faded ink. "The gold isn't in the ground. It's in us." Elias frowned. What the hell does that mean? He pocketed the paper and left before dark. But as he crossed the clearing again, something caught his eye. Movement beneath the black soil. It was subtle, like shadows shifting underwater. He crouched, squinting. The ground pulsed faintly. And then he heard it. A voice, distant and low. "Keep digging." He spun around. No one there. The lantern flickered. Again the whisper. "Keep digging." The voice wasn't coming from behind him. It was coming from below. The ground cracked. A thin line of golden light split the earth beneath his boots, spreading outward like veins. Elias stumbled back, terrified, but the light faded as quickly as it came. Silence again. He grabbed his things and ran until his lungs burned. He spent the next day trying to convince himself he'd imagined it. He drank, prayed, even tried to burn the parchment, but the flames wouldn't touch it. They just curved around it like it wasn't really there. By nightfall, he gave up. He sat by the river, staring at his reflection in the water. That's when he saw it, a shimmer behind his reflection. a golden outline, faint but unmistakable, standing right behind him. He turned, revolver drawn. Nothing. When he looked back at the water, the reflection was gone, except for one thing: his eyes. For a split second, they glowed gold. Days passed. Elias stopped keeping track of time. He began dreaming of voices in the soil, of men with pickaxes walking through molten earth. He dreamed of a woman with pale eyes calling his name, her hand reaching for him from a tunnel of light. Every morning, he woke up closer to the clearing. It was as if something was pulling him there. He fought it for a while, until the night the humming stopped. The silence was worse. It felt like the world had stopped breathing. So he gave in. He took his pickaxe, walked to the center of the clearing, and began to dig. The ground was hard at first, then soft, then warm. Steam rose with every strike. The deeper he dug, the louder his heartbeat sounded. Or maybe it wasn't his heartbeat at all. Something was answering him. And when his pick finally struck metal, a flash of gold burst through the hole, blinding and beautiful. He fell back, gasping. The light spread in thin tendrils, crawling up his arms, into his veins. It didn't burn. It sang. He tried to move, but the ground beneath him was breathing now, inhaling, exhaling. And from deep below, a voice rose through the soil, clear and calm. Welcome back. The next morning, a research team upriver reported strange electrical readings near the old Sal Cristovo Basin. When they arrived, they found a fresh crater, smoke rising from the soil, and at its center, a single pickaxe embedded in gold glass. No sign of Elias Turner. Only the hum remained. They called it the glass pit, a perfect circle of hardened earth, smooth as obsidian, deep enough to swallow the light. Scientists came first, then soldiers, then no one at all. The jungle didn't want them there. Equipment malfunctioned. Radios hissed with whispers. Metal tools rusted overnight. The men said the air tasted like metal, like blood and lightning. By the third week, half the team was gone, claiming fever or madness. Only one stayed, Clara Rojas, a young geologist from Bogota. She'd been hired to analyze the soil composition, but what she found wasn't soil at all. The samples pulsed faintly under the microscope, not organic, not mineral, something in between. When she reported it, her supervisor told her to stop digging. She didn't. The day she went down into the pit, the sky was black though it hadn't rained in weeks. Clara carried only a headlamp, a notebook, and a small pick. The glass ground crunched beneath her boots, whispering like frozen sand. She reached the center and felt it, that vibration, faint, rhythmic, like something alive. She crouched, pressed her palm flat. The hum ran up her arm, into her chest, matching her heartbeat. That's when she noticed something. Embedded in the surface was a handprint, not fossilized, fresh, larger than any human's. And beneath it, lines of light began to glow, tracing outward like veins. Clara stumbled back, terrified. No, no. The light grew stronger, blinding, humming like a swarm of bees. And then, for a split second, she saw him, a figure in the glow, half buried, half standing, a wide-brimmed hat, heavy boots, his face shadowed, but his eyes, they shone gold. Clara woke up in her tent the next morning, clothes soaked, hands covered in black dust. The others were gone. Every tent, every piece of equipment, vanished. The jungle around her was silent. Her notebook lay open on the ground. She didn't remember writing anything, but page after page was filled with sketches, spirals, tunnels, and a word repeated over and over again: graves. She walked for 3 days, following the river south, but the river changed directions. The trees shifted. Trails she marked disappeared overnight. By the 4th day, she found a chapel. She almost didn't recognize it. It was nearly swallowed by vines, leaning sideways. Inside, the air was cold. Dust floated in thin shafts of light through holes in the roof. And there, on the altar, lay a parchment, old, brittle, symbols she didn't understand. But she recognized one thing, the same phrase from her notebook: the gold isn't in the ground. It's in us. She felt her heartbeat slow. Then another line appeared beneath the old ink, fresh, like someone was writing it at that very moment. He's awake. That night, the jungle came alive. The hum returned, louder than ever. Clara saw the trees bending as if bowing to something. The sky glowed faintly gold. She ran until she reached the pit again. But it was no longer empty. In the center, rising from the earth, was a figure covered in dirt and gold dust. A man. He stood motionless, head tilted upward, as if listening to something above. When he turned, his face was scarred, eyes glowing faintly. Human and not human at once. "Who are you?" Clara whispered. His voice was calm, deep, echoing through the clearing. "I was a prospector," he said. "Now I'm what the earth made of me." She stepped closer, trembling. "Samuel Graves?" He smiled. "Names don't matter anymore. You came because it called you. Same as me." She shook her head. "What is this? Were you?" He looked down at his hands. Gold light pulsed beneath the skin. "You'll see. Soon." The ground beneath her feet began to tremble. The glass cracked, and from below came light, rivers of molten gold spreading in every direction. "Stop," she cried. "You'll destroy everything." Graves looked at her one last time. "You can't destroy what you are." The light consumed him. The air exploded in a flash of heat and thunder. Then silence. When Clara opened her eyes, the pit was gone. So was Graves. The ground beneath her feet was soft again. Dirt, real dirt. But her hands were glowing faintly, the veins beneath her skin flickering gold. She screamed, dropped to her knees, tried to rub it off. But the glow spread faster, up her arms, across her chest. Then, all at once, it stopped. The light vanished. Only her heartbeat remained, slow, steady, and echoing faintly in the earth around her. She was alive, but she wasn't the same. 3 months later, explorers traveling upriver found her sitting beside the ruins of São Cristóvão, quiet, calm, hands buried in the soil. When they asked what happened, she only said one thing: the gold moved on. Years passed. The jungle healed itself, or pretended to. Trees grew over the crater, roots thick and knotted. The rivers cleared, though sometimes, when the sun hit just right, a golden shimmer ran beneath the surface, like something sleeping below. No one spoke of the disappearances anymore. São Cristóvão had become a ghost name, a story told around campfires by miners who didn't believe in curses but carried crosses anyway. Until one day, a boy found the ring. He was only 12, the son of a fisherman, curious, restless. The river had gone low that season, exposing banks no one had seen in decades. That's where he saw it. A glint under the mud, small and perfect. He dug it out with his fingers. It was a gold band, smooth, warm to the touch. Inside was a single word etched in shaky letters. More. He took it home. By nightfall, the boy was sick. Fever, sweating, muttering in his sleep. His mother called the doctor, but he didn't know what to make of it. The boy's pulse was too slow. His skin shimmered faintly under the lantern light. By dawn, he was gone. Not dead, just gone. The bed was empty, the sheets cold. But in the corner of the room, someone had written on the wall, in neat, perfect letters drawn with a trembling hand: "The gold is moving." News traveled fast. The government sealed off the region again. But sealing the jungle was like trying to trap the wind. People came anyway, mercenaries, scientists, miners. And among them, one name stood out: Captain Elias Crow, ex-military, ex-skeptic, hired to contain whatever had started spreading through the river basin. He arrived with 20 men, a helicopter, and orders to burn anything that glowed. The first week was easy. They found abandoned villages, strange carvings, dead animals with golden eyes. The second week, the nightmares began. Men heard whispers while on watch. Some said the trees were breathing. One man shot himself after claiming he saw a miner walking to the fog with a lantern burning gold. Crow didn't believe them, not yet. He'd seen war. He didn't scare easy. Until the night, they reached the chapel of St. Christopher. It stood just like the report said, half swallowed by vines, roof collapsed, altar black with mold. but the air inside was wrong. Crow's men carried instruments that measured radiation, electromagnetic spikes, and chemical traces. Every device went dead the moment they stepped through the door. At the altar lay something new, a notebook, dry and clean despite the humidity. On the first page, "The gold isn't in the ground. It's in us." On the second page, a list of names. Dozens of them. Miners, soldiers, scientists. Some crossed out, others still open. At the very bottom was a new one, handwritten, fresh. Elias Crow. He slammed the book shut. "We're leaving. Now." But when they turned, the door was gone. Only vines thick, twisting, and moving. His men panicked, fired their rifles. Bullets hit the walls and vanished, swallowed by the air like it wasn't real. Then the floor began to hum. The same sound that had haunted the pit years ago. Crows shouted for them to hold formation, but the ground cracked open beneath their boots. Light surged upward, swallowing everything. One by one, the men disappeared into the glow. Crow was the last. He fell to his knees, staring at his hands. The veins beneath his skin pulsed gold. A voice spoke behind him, calm, deep, familiar. "Welcome, Captain." Crow turned. A man stood there, hat pulled low, lantern burning gold. "Samuel Graves," Crow whispered. The man smiled faintly. "You're too late to stop it. It's already spreading." Crow raised his rifle. "What is it?" Graves stepped closer. The light behind him pulsed like a heartbeat. "It's what you all came for," he said softly. "You dug for it, killed for it, prayed for it, and now it's tired of being buried." He leaned forward. "The gold's awake." When the jungle was found months later, there was no sign of the team. The trees were black and smooth, the riverbed solid like glass. But under the surface, faint lines of light ran through the roots, moving slow as blood. At night, if you listened close, you could hear the ground hum, steady and low, like something alive. And sometimes, just before dawn, locals swore they saw men walking to the fog, old hats, lanterns in hand, eyes glowing faintly gold. They were still digging. It had been 10 years since the disappearance of Tommy Graves and his team. The jungle had taken back everything: cameras, camps, even the dirt roads. What used to be clearings were now forests again, vines choking the remains of tripods and melted metal. But sometimes, when the rain came heavy, pieces of gold dust would still flow downstream, sparkling beneath the surface. Locals no longer touched it. They just watched it pass, whispering prayers to keep their families safe. The government declared the entire area a restricted zone, yet satellite images showed faint movements at night, heat signatures deep under the surface, like a heartbeat buried beneath the earth. That's when David Lang, a documentary filmmaker from New York, decided to go. He wasn't a prospector, not even close. He wanted to make a film about obsession, about how gold could consume generations. When he read about Samuel and Tommy Graves, he felt drawn to it in ways he couldn't explain. "I'm not here for treasure," he told his producer. "I'm here for answers." He arrived in Altamira with a small crew: Sofia Mendez, a sound engineer who grew up near the river, and Lucas Ferreira, a guide who claimed to have once seen the light. Lucas refused to go near the forbidden zone at first. "You don't understand," he said. "It's not a place. It's alive." But money talks, and soon they were on the road. They trekked through thick forest for days. The deeper they went, the quieter it became. No birds, no insects, only wind moving to the leaves like whispers. Every night, they heard the same faint hum in the distance, a pulse that grew louder if they spoke Graves' name. By the fourth day, their equipment began malfunctioning. Batteries drained in minutes. GPS spun out of control. Cameras glitched, recording shadows that weren't there. David was fascinated. "This is real," he whispered into his recorder. "Whatever this is, it's intelligent." Lucas begged to turn back, but David refused. "We're too close." When they reached the river, it wasn't a river anymore. The water moved sideways, sliding over a flat surface that looked like glass. Beneath it, veins of gold shimmered faintly, forming patterns that pulsed like living veins. Sophia leaned closer, mesmerized. It's like it's breathing. Then something below the surface shifted, a shadow with a human shape. David lifted his camera just as the figure rose slowly through the glass like water. It looked like a man, but not entirely. His skin was metallic, his eyes dim but aware. And in his hand, he held an old lantern glowing gold. Lucas screamed, dropping his flashlight. "That's him. That's Graves." The figure looked straight into the lens. The hum grew deafening, vibrating in their bones. Then it spoke, voice distorted, distant. "Why do you keep coming?" David stammered. We want to understand." The figure tilted its head. "You already do. You just don't admit it." Before they could react, the light burst from the lantern, flooding everything in gold. When they woke, they were no longer by the river. They were in a vast underground hall, smooth walls glowing with faint movement, as if thousands of people were trapped inside the gold itself. Sophia's voice trembled. "Are they alive?" David touched the wall. It was warm. When he leaned in, he could hear whispers, names, prayers, songs. Then he heard his own voice among them, though he hadn't spoken. Lucas fell to his knees, crying. "It's the same," he whispered. "It's what took my brother. He came here 20 years ago." The shadows within the gold began to move. Faces pressed outward from the surface, stretching and fading again. David tried to film, but the camera screen filled with static. Then an image appeared on it. Tommy Graves, standing alone, staring back at him. "It's not gold," the recording whispered. "It's memory." The floor rippled beneath their feet, like something breathing beneath the surface. Sophia clutched David's arm. "We have to go." But there was no exit. The tunnel behind them had sealed, turning to molten light. David turned back toward the center of the chamber. The golden figure stood there again, holding the lantern. "You dig for answers," it said, "but answers dig back." The lantern flared again, and for a brief moment, David saw a vision. Hundreds of miners through the centuries, digging, bleeding, collapsing into the earth. Each one absorbed by the gold, their memories carved into it forever. He saw Samuel. He saw Tommy. And then he saw himself. The light faded. Sophia and Lucas were gone. Only their voices echoed to the golden walls, whispering softly. David dropped to his knees. "What do you want from me?" The figure stepped closer. Its face changed. Not Samuel anymore, not Tommy. It was David's own face, glowing faintly. "We don't want anything," it said. "We are you." The lantern went out. A month later, a satellite scan showed new movement inside the heart of Graves, a new corridor forming, leading deeper underground. Officials claimed it was tectonic activity. Locals said otherwise. They said the gold had learned to remember again. And somewhere beneath the jungle, a new hum had begun, softer, steadier, repeating a single name. David. It pulsed quietly beneath the soil, beneath the rivers, beneath every forgotten trail where men once dug with trembling hands and impossible hope. The jungle swallowed their names, but not their echoes. When the wind moves a certain way, heavy with rain and iron, you can still hear the rhythm. It's not just sound, it's memory. The same steady beat that guided the first Prospector's shovel, that pulled Samuel Graves toward the unknown, that consumed Tommy and his crew, that whispered to David Lang to the camera lens. Each generation thought they were searching for gold. They were wrong. The gold was searching for them. It doesn't crave wealth. It craves remembrance. Every soul that enters the heart adds another note to its endless song, another layer to its living walls. There are rumors now, quiet ones, shared by truck drivers or baron hoes, and the last of the Garampiros who still wander the forest's edge. They speak of light seen beneath the river at night, glowing in patterns like veins, of shadows walking upstream without ripples, of a voice that speaks from the trees when no one else is around. They say if you bring a piece of gold too close to your ear, you can hear it whisper, sometimes in English, sometimes in Portuguese, sometimes in something older, rough as stone and soft as breath. Keep digging. A few brave souls still go in, armed with new machines and new greed, thinking they can outsmart a curse. They don't come back. The jungle always closes, patient as ever. And when the storms roll through, lightning flashing across the black sky, the river glows, just for a moment, like molten light running to the veins of the world. That's when you realize something simple, something ancient. The gold was never treasure. It was never luck. It was never ours to take. It was life itself, remembering every hand that touched it, every heart that wanted it, every soul it claimed in return. And so the legend endures. In bars, in ghost towns, in the dreams of prospectors who still hear the hum when they sleep. Somewhere, far below, the lantern still burns, its flame steady, unending, marking the place where man met his reflection and called it fortune. Welcome to Gold Rush Stories, where the jungle remembers everything.